What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Crush City Territory presented by Fox One. I'm Chandler Rome, joined by Josh Reddick. Tyler Stafford is feeling better, but got stuck in a longer than usual meeting for his day job. So he'll join us when he can, but we'll start this out, just me and Josh, talking about something Josh knows pretty well. The Gold Glove finalists were announced on I believe, what's today? Thursday. So they were announced on Wednesday. The Astros have two finalists, Mauricio Dubon at the utility position, which at this point shouldn't be that big of a surprise. Dubon, one of the better versatile utility men in baseball, won the utility Gold Glove Award in 2023. So he'll be trying for his second Gold Glove. The other, I think, would have surprised a lot of people had we said this in March. But I think as we watched Cam Smith evolve this season, really turned himself into one of the best right fielders in baseball, defensive right fielders in baseball, after never playing the position at all prior to spring training. Josh, that speaks to Cam Smith's just freakish athleticism and natural ability, but also speaks to just kind of the aptitude of a kid that was a lifelong third baseman, played on the dirt for so long, to transition and to be a legitimate, be considered now one of the best defensive right fielders in baseball. What a story and what an arc for him.
Yeah, and that's the main thing we look at is just his pure athleticism. To go out there and just pick it up and run after baseballs. And I'll probably be one of the first people ever to say, like, obviously right field or any outfield position is way easier than any spot on the infield. You just have more time to react, so it just gives him a little bit more ways to show his athleticism because he is so quick with his reaction time, having to be at the hot corner to be able to have that, extra what feels like 4 seconds probably to him to react to a baseball, and just shows how great he is at just going and getting it. When we talked about him earlier, it was all about, well, how's his routes going to be? How are his route running abilities going to be? And they have been A+ since he got out there. And the one thing I think I remember talking about is probably figuring out how to get that release a little quicker. And then obviously balls to the wall and balls off the wall is something to kind of work on. And something that I've always tried to teach people and teach kids is, once it gets to that wall, don't worry about that glove. Get that ball and grab it and go. Let that arm do the work. And he's got plenty of arm strength. He's just got to learn to grab it with that bare hand and unleash the cobra. So he's got Pena that should be trailing somewhere around there. And if whoever's at second base, whether it be Altuve or Dubon or wherever the cut may be, you've got some pretty good guys in there that can do some pretty good damage for you, getting the ball back into where it needs to be.
I think the thing about Cam that really that showed itself throughout the season is look, there were times when he looked like a guy that had never played out there, just routes wise, in terms of like the reads would be initially maybe he took a step back when he should have taken a step forward. The routes maybe weren't the best early in the season, but the one thing you saw, Josh, he is so athletic and he's just got so much freakish natural athletic ability that he was able to mask it. Like if the route wasn't great, he had enough closing speed to still get where he needed to be, or he has enough long levers to reach his arm out there and get the ball. Like that stuff.
He's 6'5", right? 6'5".
Yeah.
6'4", 6'5". So he's got some stretch on most guys, but the way to be able to move at that size is just the ability that you show of how great of a natural athlete he is. Because you could run a ball the wrong way, but have the ability to quickly turn right or turn left and stretch behind your head if you need to. So having limbs that can stretch that far obviously help out. But you talk about, I'm glad you mentioned that, because you talk about those step in instead of the step back to come get that ball. I think it was a couple of times in Oakland. I was actually working the game and saw it happen. So, those things kind of become an issue. And taking charge, he seems to get a little nervous out there when he's coming in and getting balls from a second baseman. He does great, whoever's in center. He kind of seems to do good there. But getting the initial read to break in on that ball and just taking charge and getting whoever's in the way out of the way. Because if you can come in and catch it, barring without diving and making a fantastic effort, you get in there and you get that baseball away from that person, because he's usually running backwards in an uncomfortable spot, and it's just going to be so much easier for you to go in there and make that play.
Josh and I were talking before we hit record that the Gold Glove voting and what matters in Gold Glove voting and who gets the awards kind of changes year to year, and it's not a very transparent or clear process. Like Cal Raleigh was a platinum glove catcher last year, and this year, has basically the same defensive stats, has been obviously one of the better offensive players in baseball, and he's not even a Gold Glove finalist. You have guys that you look at their defensive metrics, and sometimes they're better defensive metrically than the guy that wins the award. And there's not, this isn't like the BBWA awards where you can see the ballots are public and you know who voted for whom.
Or how it works.
Right.
There's no book of how Gold Glove voting goes.
Right. So that being said, anything can happen. But if we're looking at this just pretty straight up, Adolis Garcia, who is one of the other finalists alongside Cam Smith and Wilyer Abreu, Adolis Garcia's defensive numbers are far and away better than both of them. It should be Adolis Garcia's award to lose. But again, you never know with how the voting goes. I would not be shocked either way, but I would consider Adolis Garcia probably the favorite to win the award in right field, but that takes nothing away from Cam Smith even being, one of the 3 finalists in his first year as a big leaguer in his first year in right field. But the fact that he got the recognition kind of led me to start thinking about guys that, young guys on the team that need to maybe take the next step going into next season and into 2026. And I think obviously Cam Smith is top that list. You saw the flashes of potential that Cam showed this year were undeniable, right? Like, going into mid to late June, I mean, he was hitting cleanup. He was hitting cleanup in a lineup that had, championship aspirations. And it wasn't one of these things where he was Joe's only option. Like, Cam Smith warranted hitting cleanup. He was hitting that well. The plate discipline was good. The approach looked, pretty good. And then I think a mixture of fatigue. I think a mixture of the league adjusting to him and Cam maybe not being able to adjust back quick enough. I think a lot of things contributed to what happened in the second half. He had a 489 OPS after the All-Star break and 170 plate appearances. His playing time dwindled to, I don't want to say he was not an everyday player, but certainly, getting Jesus Sanchez in here, they were more into a platoon kind of thing. Cam was still valuable. They could still use him to run late in games. They trusted him to pinch hit every now and then, but certainly his everyday duties dwindled. Josh, as you look at Cam's, we just talked about him defensively, obviously what he did in right field, but for his overall game, where is the next step that he has to take going into next season to have no questions about his playing time, to say this is an everyday player, we're going to pencil him in every day, put him in right field, and watch him blossom?
The biggest thing I'm looking at is just, making that body ready for the long haul. Like we always talk about, I know it's excuse me, I know it's repetitive, but when we talk about Cam Smith, it's got to be longevity. Obviously, he hasn't played a lot of games in his career overall from college to now, so he's got to get to that point where his body can handle being that everyday guy, playing 150 plus a year, just working on finding out what he needs to do to stay strong, to stay not tired, and make sure he's energized for every game, and just not overall fatigued. Find ways off the field to help that as well. Maybe slow down life that way. You need to kind of calm down if you need to, but there's ways where he needs to find out to keep to where he can be at the end of the year, just as strong as he did start the season. So that's probably step one for me if I'm looking at Cam Smith. 2 is I'm watching a lot of video. I'm watching a lot of video of my at-bats of how I was pitched mostly during the year. And that's, the whole offseason. I'm trying to figure out what I need to do to make myself better, to improve on those points, because like you just said, the pitchers adjust to him. You got to learn to adjust. We always hear about game of adjustments, but it is. You got to remember, you got to find ways to figure out that guy before he figures out his next move. And you just got to stay ahead of every pitcher you can and have a plan. Stick there to have that plan. Hopefully he's got his day-to-day routine figured out by now. Once he shows up to the park, he knows what he's doing at certain times without even having to look at the clock. It just becomes natural. So just that, and just adapting to the lifestyle of being a big league ball player. It's tough. It's not just the games. It's the travel. People don't realize it's not just the ninth inning's over at home. All right, we shower, we're out. It's a good probably 2.5 hours before we're even taking off on the plane to the airport. Then you're getting, let's say you're flying to Seattle, or you're going to the East Coast. You're just losing all sorts of time. You're landing there late. you're getting a bus to the hotel, and the last thing you want to do is go do something. So it's not just the playing that gets you; it's everything else: the travel, the time zones, your sleep schedule becomes erratic. And if you have kids and family, that's another way to kind of figure out things. But you've got to find ways to rest your body.
Tyler must have heard us talking about Cam Smith because he's ready to join the show. Hello, Tyler.
Hello.
How excited were you that Cam Smith is a Gold Glove finalist?
Did we get PPI for that too?
No PPI for that.
They should be gifted like a 3rd round draft pick for him having that. I got on and immediately heard how chaotic it is with children, and let me tell you, yes. So I was sick earlier this week. We went up to San Antonio this weekend. Margot turns 3 tomorrow, and we got tickets to a place in San Antonio called Morgan's Wonderland, which is an adaptive amusement park. And it was so cool. Like, all of the rides had places for like wheelchairs to be in, and and then like sensory rooms and all this cool stuff. The playground there was so cool. It had so many different adaptive things. So we went up to San Antonio. Don't recommend trying to drive with a very colicky baby to San Antonio and back after an amusement park day. But then, of course, we all got sick. So I was just like, I don't know about you guys, but every time I get sick, my wife sends me like Facebook memes of other wives going like, when my husband gets a cold, he acts like it's the worst thing in the world. I'm like, it is. It's
your
terrible.
Wife downplays your sickness too?
Yeah. I'm like, come on. I know I'm not like, it doesn't look like I'm dying, but I feel like I am. Okay. I don't know how to explain it to you, but
I could have 101 temperature, fever, sweating, freezing in the bed, and she's like, "Are you going to do anything today?"
Yeah. I'm like, come on, man.
No.
I didn't even get the benefit of having a fever. I was just like, I feel terrible, and I don't know what to say about that. But I do not feel good. But yes, that was fun. And then Margot got sick yesterday. So I think we washed sheets maybe 4 times in the middle of the night last night. So yeah, I'm here. I'm ready to go. But I agree with you, Josh, that if you are also trying to play baseball 155 games a year while dealing with that, look, it's hard for me to come to my fake office job that's in my guest bedroom at my house where I sit on a computer all day. So I can't imagine trying to face Tarek Skubal.
Hey.
Or Yoshinobu Yamamoto.
Hey, I did it with 2-week-old twins in the World Series in 2019.
Yeah, you're crazy.
Strasburg.
Your wife, I'm sure, loved that.
Hey, I was getting up and feeding them too and changing them.
Yeah, you were.
One of the first time I consistently ever took naps at the ballpark.
One of our big innovations this time around with the 3rd kid was we bought a trash can in our room that has one of those like foldable, like the lids that kind of collapses on it. So I get to play diaper basketball, which I really enjoy. And I've gotten real good at banking shots in across the room into this trash can.
Tim Duncan.
Yeah, of course.
Always open.
Josh, you brought something up before we get back to actual players in baseball. You brought up taking naps at the ballpark. I don't think a lot of people know that now Dyken Park has a nap room.
Heck
We've
yeah.
had a nap room for years there.
Any room's a nap room if you try hard enough.
Can you tell the people what the nap room is like what it was like at Minute Maid Park, what it's like at Dyken Park to walk into this place that literally like they have scientifically like outfitted it just for ball players and coaches to nap in it?
Well, I don't know where it is now, but when I was there, it was, attached to the training room, and it was just this like basically soundproof, dark room, like you're walking into a spa for a massage. Just had that ambience, and had the oil diffuser in the corner slowly dripping out. You had the lighting going on. You got these big, fancy, expensive, lounge chairs that can contort to your body and fit and stretch and bend and do all kinds of things. And you just go back there and put your headphones on, and you got your nice little cushioned sleep mask and your fancy pillow, and take it whatever you know. Will Harris was the king of doing that. But Will Harris had young kids when he played too, so. But it was something that was definitely different and odd for me to learn. But you're right, Tyler, because when I was in Oakland, I needed a nap. I had to go find like a corner in a back room and concrete floor. So it was a little different, but yeah, it's definitely a 5-star nap quiet room if that's your vibe.
I mean, I know for a fact there were people that if you guys would play a night game on a Saturday and then had a day game Sunday, instead of going home, like just crash in the nap room and then just like, hey, we're there the next morning, ready to go. Reports at 10 or 9 or 10. Like it's pointless. Like, cause you guys, there's some of you don't live like downtown Houston. It's a haul to drive home. So it made more sense to just stay in the nap room all night. And
Oh, they were having sleepovers? That's adorable.
I'd do it in Oakland, believe it or not. We play like the Giants or something. Same thing. Like a couple years ago, we would be allowed to drive to San Fran for a road game, but it'd take 30 minutes after a normal game to get back home. It'd take like an hour and 15 because 45 minutes took getting over the bridge back to where you needed to go. So I would just go back over the bridge to the Coliseum and sleep in my locker with about 13 towels on the floor. And then I finally got smart and got the air mattress out. But
sleep in your locker? What does that mean? Like a vampire? Like you're standing straight up?
I would be
my locker
petrified. I would be petrified to sleep at the Oakland Coliseum.
I wasn't the only one there.
Well,
we know.
Might have been the only human, but there were definitely other living things sleeping in there.
I wasn't anywhere near the bathrooms, if that's what we're worried about here.
At the Coliseum, you were always near the bathroom.
And drive over to the ballpark and play the Giants.
Oh man, that you really played with fire there, sleeping at the Coliseum overnight. We will get back to discussing which Astros have to take the next step in 2026 right after this message from our friends at DraftKings. Football is back, and so is your shot at big wins. With DraftKings Pick 6, the official daily fantasy partner of the NFL, your game day instincts can score you real money fast. Here's the play. Just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats and unlock the upside every snap brings. The better your calls, the bigger your payout. This season, play your player instincts. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code FOUL. That's code FOUL. Play just $5, get $50 in Pick 6 bonus picks. Make the call, ride the upside. In partnership with DraftKings Pick 6, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 bonus picks that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
We talked about one young outfielder in the previous segment that needs to maybe take the next step, and that's Cam Smith. Obviously, and Tyler, we have talked about this. There's probably, and you don't want to put it all on one guy, but if you kind of look for the future, 2 and 3 years down the road, it's imperative that Cam Smith, turns into the aircraft carrier that Dana Brown labeled him as. It's imperative that he turns into, I don't want to say he doesn't need to finish top 5 in MVP voting, but he needs to be the sort of, player, one of the core players for the next kind of wave as you kind of look going forward. That's a lot of pressure to put on a 22-year-old, but it's one that the Astros put on him from the minute they acquired him. They have thought this. They have thought he can be one of the faces of the next one of the faces of the next, wave of good Astros talent coming up, young talent. I think it's imperative that he takes that next step next year. He doesn't have to all translate next year, but certainly putting together a more consistent season than he did as a rookie. And it'll be easier. He knows Major League life better, and it'll obviously, be a little bit easier for him. But another outfielder that you look at maybe doesn't have this much pressure on him, but it'll be a fascinating test case to see how Zach Cole comes to spring training and kind of what the future holds for him, because obviously what he did in a very, very brief cameo at the big leagues last year, it was 52 plate appearances, but having 4 homers, 6 extra base hits, not looking overmatched, looking like a guy that belonged, certainly gave you some hope going forward for a very jumbled outfield mess. But again, it was, you don't want to overreact to 15 games. You also need to look at that he struck out 20 times in 47 at bats. He's still not a finished product by any stretch of the imagination, but I think he is certainly the type of player and has the sort of tools that is what this team needs. They need a little more speed. They need a little more youth. They need a little more just energy. And I think Zach Cole can bring that. Josh, as you watched him the last month of the season, obviously was on an unreal heater, was the hottest hitter in the organization, called him up, and he kept that going down the stretch. What would you like to see from him just from as the sample size grows and as he comes into spring training with a real shot to contribute to this team in 2026?
I mean, I think the strikeouts got to be cut down. I mean, it was obviously a game of homer or strikeout. There were a lot of strikeouts. I remember Zach Cole when he stepped into the box. So, but when he hits the ball, he hits it hard, and that's a good sign that he can find the barrel. I mean, first pitch you saw in the big leagues, he was like 113 off the bat or something.
Mm-hmm.
Just an absolute rocket of a home run. So the potential is there to hit big league pitching. He's just got to cut down those big swing and misses. There's too many guys like that in baseball as it is, and he's just got to do something to make himself stand out in that ball club, because they're not going to need him to be that middle of the lineup savior that they needed at the end of this year. They're going to need him to kind of solidify probably the bottom of that lineup if he's going to be talked about at all. But I think more contact has to be something he focuses on.
Yeah, so last season he put 27 balls in play, and there were only 57 hitters in Major League Baseball last year that hit a ball harder than the hardest ball that Zach Cole hit in 27 tries. That power plays like that. That is a statistic that you can project, and you can say, all right, if he can hit a ball that hard, that is a skill that he has. Like sometimes there are soft skills, right? Of, he's a good defender, maybe this will play at the next level, or he's got a really good eye, or, those types of things. Like those things can ebb and flow. How hard you can hit a baseball is just a thing that is innate about you. And he can hit a ball really, really hard. And so, yeah, there are going to be a million things that he's going to have to fix. I mean, one, pitchers are actually going to plan to pitch to him, which I doubt they spent too much time worrying about in his brief appearances this year. They're going to come in with an actual plan. They're probably going to see the highlights of his home runs and say, maybe we don't want to throw fastballs at the top of the zone because it seems like he likes to tomahawk those 450 feet. Maybe we avoid those for the time being. But still, the ability to hit a ball that hard is something that carries over and is something that you can look to and be excited about. So, I mean, look, like I said, only Yordan and actually Jesus Sanchez had one at the very end of the year, a little bit harder, but literally nobody else on the Astros hit a ball harder than Zach Cole in 27 tries. I mean, that's something to get excited about for sure.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's on the 40-man roster now, so barring some trade this winter, he's going to come to camp. He's going to come to big league spring training, which he was not in last year. I think we should all remind ourselves this kid was not in big league camp last year. That's how meteoric his rise has been. But, I think he's got a lot to prove that, it just wasn't a 3-week heater that the Astros capitalized on. I think he's got a lot to prove coming in, that he is a more well-rounded hitter than Josh, as you mentioned, and you mentioned correctly, strikeouts or homers. And look, that can play like that in modern baseball, that can be a good set of skills to have. But
if you walk,
if you get on base a little bit, especially for this team, one that did not get on base at the clip it wanted to last year, one that, struck out too much, that chased too much. He needs to be a little more of a well-rounded offensive player. And to be honest, I don't know if we saw that. I don't know if we were given the opportunity to see that because A, the sample size is so small. You can only see so much, in 3 weeks in the big leagues. And B, Tyler, like you said, I mean, this kid came up in such a pressure-packed environment, and pitchers didn't know who he was. I mean, pitchers had somewhat of a scouting report on him, but yeah, you're right. They probably looked at the Braves series and were like, oh, wait, all they threw this kid was fastballs and he destroyed them. So let's just spin him to death. Let's give him some breaking balls. Let's give him some stuff out of the zone. We know he'll chase. And that's what happened. So he's going to have to prove that he is a little bit more of a well-rounded player. But look, they love the defense. They think he is a natural center fielder. Obviously, hitting from the left side is balance that this team did not have last year that he could certainly afford, which helps us segue into maybe another guy that he could be in competition with, or that maybe, the Astros this winter have to choose between. And that's, Jacob Melton or Zach Cole. I think they have a lot of similar attributes. They both hit left-handed. They're both very, very good defensive outfielders. They both can run like gazelles. They both have very good sprint speeds. And both of them, I think certainly Zach Cole, you see the power more than you see from Jacob Melton. You have seen Jacob Melton, at the big league level, though, work some better at bats, work some better plate appearances. I do know just within the organization, they do like Cole's approach a little bit more than Melton's, for no other reason than they believe Zach Cole has a pretty defined plan and approach. And in some cases that can get away from Jacob Melton. So I think both, obviously, again, barring a trade this winter, I think both of them are going to come to camp with a legitimate shot of impacting this team. But as you look at Jacob Melton specifically, Josh, what do you think? What do you think is the next step for him? We saw a little bit more of him at the big league level, obviously, than we did from Cole. But what is the next step for Jacob Melton in 2026?
I think you nailed it. Just talking about his approach, making something stick when he has a plan, and not get away from that, like you mentioned. But I think if something's going to have to work, he's got to get some power numbers. And I think that's the one thing that Zach Cole has over him in this battle is the power numbers. And this is such a power-driven game now. It's going to take him maybe hitting not as many homers, but just driving that ball and stretching out a few more doubles, because Zach Cole is going to hit his home runs, but it's going to be fun to watch, because I feel like these guys are going to have at least 60 to 75 at bats in spring training. So it'll be a good old fashioned, I think, spring training battle between these two guys and see who works better at it. Obviously, getting more at bats for them will be way beneficial for especially like a guy like Cole, because he's got so far to go to get to facing the big league pitching. But for Jacob Melton, obviously, I think the extra base hits have to be more common for him, and just sticking to that plan and not chasing. They both need to work on not chasing. But when I'm looking at Jacob Melton, I need more power, and that's really just my focal point.
Does anybody want to take a guess at what Jacob Melton's average launch angle was last year?
I believe it was negative.
Negative 5.7.
Yeah, we don't need that.
Nope, that's not what you want.
That's nowhere close to good, guys.
That's real bad. Yeah, you want to be in the like 15 to 20-ish. You want to hit line drives, right? Like that's what you're trying to get off the bat. You certainly want it to just go not in the dirt on average, which is what happened. Look, again, the raw power is there. He had a max exit velocity of 111.3. That is more than reasonable for a major league hitter. For context, that's harder than any ball Jose Altuve hit last year, harder than any ball Jeremy Pena hit last year, Victor Carantini. Like he can hit the ball hard, but if he's hitting the ball really hard directly into the grass in front of home plate, you don't get to use the speed. And I mean, I would imagine, as we talked about, look, Jacob Melton has had success because he's so fast that I would imagine for most of his career, every coach he's had is like, just hit the ball somewhere. And you're so fast. If you're hitting it hard anywhere in the field, you're probably going to be fine. And that probably has worked for him for most of his career. That's not going to cut it at the big league level. Like, you have to get the ball in the air consistently. Now, again, we don't want him swinging for the fences. That's not what you're asking for, but you do have to change that plane of approach of, look, instead of just trying to touch it somewhere and run out a base hit, you're not going to be able to do that consistently at the big league level. But there are raw numbers in there for him to get excited about. Again, if you can hit it that hard, if we can work on how you're hitting it that hard and the angle that you're doing it. So I would imagine that is the major point of emphasis for him, because again, if he's just hitting line drives consistently, he's going to be a good big league hitter, even with the strikeouts, because at least when you put the ball in play, you are really fast and, you're making hard contact. You're going to be able to stretch singles into doubles that a lot of people aren't going to be able to do. Your numbers will be there, but you can't hit the ball negative launch angle and be a successful big leaguer.
I'll give Jacob Melton this. Last in 2024, so not this past season, but 2 seasons ago, in the minor leagues, he had a 49.3% ground ball rate, which is way too high. It's obviously not the 80.5% ground ball rate he had in the big leagues this year. But so he went from 49.3% ground ball rate 2 years ago in the minor leagues to last season in the minor leagues, his ground ball rate was 38.5%. So he obviously did something between 2024 and 2025 to lower the ground ball rate in the minor leagues. Now, Josh, you know this better than anybody. You can do anything you want against minor league pitching in the AAA level, and obviously playing in the PCL where the environment is more conducive to line drives, things like that. But making that transition from doing that in the minor leagues to the major leagues is a completely different story. So that should give at least some hope that it's in there, that he found something with his swing to be able to lessen the ground ball rate that much already. He's got to find a way to do that coming into spring training this year, because as you look at this outfield, I don't think any of us believe Jesus Sanchez will be around in an Astros uniform in 2026. There's a chance that do they capitalize on Jake Myers' trade value? His trade value's probably never been higher. He's got another year of team control. Do they think about maybe putting him in a trade? There's some, and then you don't know what they're doing in left field. They haven't decided maybe how much Altuve is going to play out there. Alvarez, they need some sort of backup behind them. There's outfield spots to be won. And there's certainly, I think how much faith they have in those two guys, Cole and Melton, may go toward what they do this winter. I think Jesus Sanchez is probably not long for this roster no matter what. But, you look at Jake Myers, do they think they've gotten the most out of him? And do they think they can replace that with a cheaper, more cost-controlled alternative and guys that, have similar skill sets? Because what do we talk about with Jake Myers? He's a great defensive outfielder, probably one of the better defensive center fielders in baseball, runs like a gazelle, like one of the fastest guys on the team, but he's always kind of struggled to put it together offensively. It seems like we're talking about, that's who we just talked about, Zach Cole and Jacob Melton. They're the same sort of skill set. They just hit from the other side of the plate. So these guys are going to have chances to contribute to the 2026 Astros if they can find a way to take that next step. We'll talk about pitchers who were in that same boat right after this message from our friends at Foul Territory.
This is for everyone listening right now. What are you wearing right now? And why isn't it MeUndies? Krat, it is time for everyone to upgrade and get that super soft micro modal glory. So good that you don't want to take it off.
The reason I'm stone facing you is because that's how soft they are. It's ridiculous. I don't even understand what kind of material it is. It's got to be something space age for your butt.
Signature super soft micro modal fabric. Breathable, stretchy, unbelievably cozy. And now you can even get glow in the dark, part of the Halloween line. Right now, as a listener of FT, you can get cozy and spooky for less with deals up to 50% off at MeUndies.com/foul. Enter promo code FOUL. That's MeUndies.com/foul. Promo code FOUL for up to 50% off MeUndies. comfort that's made for fall.
Josh, we've talked a lot about obviously the injuries and the attrition that have hit the pitching staff and that hit the pitching staff this year. I don't think it affected anyone worse than Spencer Arrighetti, who was kind of on the precipice of, maybe taking that next step this year, because we saw so much good in 2024 from Arrighetti as a rookie. Obviously, threw about 150 innings in the big leagues. In the second half, showed that he could be a really vital part of the rotation. And this year, injuries, most of which were out of his control, just really, really hampered him. And we've talked about how they're going to go into next year, or they're going into this spring training with two guys penciled into their rotation. That's Christian Javier and Hunter Brown. The only reason you're not penciling Spencer Arrighetti in is because he ended the season on the injured list with an elbow problem. Sounds like he will not need surgery. At least that was what he told us toward the end of the year, was that surgery was not something they were going to consider. But again, the Astros have been bitten by waiting for guys to rehab and come back from elbow injuries, and it hasn't worked.
Really loud, by the way.
What?
Yeah,
really
it's okay.
Yeah. But I wonder just how much of it for Arrighetti is just health, just staying healthy for the entire 2026 season, or were there things, because look, let's not forget what we did see from him in the 35 and a third innings he threw this year. It was an ERA close to 6. It was, walking almost 6 guys per 9 innings. It was not what you were accustomed to seeing from him as a rookie. Where does Spencer Arrighetti need to take that next step to solidify his spot in the rotation and to solidify him as a guy they can turn to every 5th day?
They're right by my window, so I'm going to move.
Yeah, I would say when I look at Arrighetti's season this year, I really only consider 2 starts to be indicative of who he is. I mean, when he came back, you mentioned his ERA, but a lot of that is just from his first start back, where he gave up 11 hits and 3 2/3. His first start of the year when he came out, 6 innings, 1 hit, 1 run. That'll play. So I don't know. I mean, for Arrighetti for this year, I think you just chalk it up to, this was a weird year with injuries, and you just hope that he can rehab over the off season and come back ready to go. I wouldn't dig too much into the numbers this year as far as results go, just because he was, still rehabbing, coming back, and they tried to bring him back as quickly as possible, obviously, because they desperately needed him. If they had 5 guys in the rotation, he could have had a lot more time to rehab and really get back into the swing of things, but they needed him back as quickly as possible. And again, he broke the thumb on his throwing hand. Like that's difficult to get your feel back for pitching when you do that.
Yeah, so sorry about that, guys. I think it just obviously sticks to health. Everything becomes health based at this point for him, because he has shown success at this level. He's shown what he's capable of, and it's just a matter of time, hopefully, before he gets back to that. But I love how Tyler mentioned, the broken thumb. It's just because it heals doesn't mean everything feels the same. You got to find a different way to grip the ball if it doesn't feel right, and that could be affecting of an elbow being sore because you've been throwing a baseball the same way for so long. Your body grows to that, and now you move your thumb over 2 centimeters and it completely changes every tendon and ligament in your elbow and your arm. So these things have long-term effects. So hopefully that's something he can figure out this all season and work at, because like you said, he came back way too quick when a team that needed him to come back too quick. But hopefully this is something he can stay healthy with and probably build some strength up through spring training and be ready to go.
And the weird thing about Arrighetti is, like, he was one of the ones, or he's been one of the many that have added a sinker to his repertoire. And he talked about that in spring training, about how much that was going to help him, maybe help his fastball, because his 4-seamer did not perform well in 2024. It was really statistically one of the worst performing 4-seam fastballs in baseball. And he added the sinker just to help that out and to help all of his other pitches out, you never really got to see him become that, introduce that new pitch and introduce that new arsenal, just because we didn't see him pitch a ton.
Mhm.
So I think that's going to help. When you look at the two pitches that probably performed, less ideal than he would have liked. He had a really good cutter in 2024 at a run value of 5. And then this year had a run value of -3. His curveball also had a run value of -3 this year after having a run value of 3 in 2024. So sometimes it's as simple as just, getting your secondary stuff better. Sometimes it's, tinkering a little bit in the arsenal. Sometimes it's just, you mentioned stay healthy. Like don't let a batting practice fly ball hit you in the thumb. And I'm not blaming Spencer Arrighetti for that, but it's just, it was a tough break, just a tough break. And so, but at the same time, just like you didn't want to hear, and I think fans were unanimous in this, fans didn't want to hear, Joe Espada and Dana Brown go up on the podium and say, oh, this season was all injuries, we'll be back better than ever, and it's just an injury problem. No, like Spencer Arrighetti, there's some stuff he can do to certainly make himself into that bona fide rotation piece that the Astros need, but they certainly need him to be one of those guys that takes the next step. I'm curious. We've talked about Melton, Cole, talked about Cam Smith and Arrighetti. Is there another guy between the two of you that you guys can think of, a younger guy that maybe we didn't see much of this year, or maybe we didn't see at all, that maybe needs to, you guys think can take that next step going into next year to make himself a viable piece of the major league team, or to put him on the precipice of helping the major league team?
Yeah, I want AJ Blueball to prove to me that he's not a starter. I want to go in with the expectation that he can. I know whatever secret people you're talking to, Chandler, don't believe in it. I don't understand it. Guy looks like a starter to me. And when you have a team with 2.5 starting pitchers currently on your roster, I would go in with the assumption that AJ Blueball is going to be in the rotation until he proves to me that he can't. And really, only if somebody else takes a spot from him. Like, to me, AJ Blueball is your number 4 starter. Like, that's what you're going into the season with right now, the way that your roster is constructed. You said you can pencil in 2 guys. I mean, there's one in invisible ink right now, waiting for free agency, hopefully, to come in. But, with Arrighetti, I think you certainly are going to. Mm-hmm.
Older gentleman, been around a little bit.
Gentlemen, we'll just leave it at that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. To me, like, Blueball has a rotation spot to lose. Again, if he comes into camp and it's clear that there's other people ready to do that, but I would spend this entire offseason prepping him to be a starting pitcher. And then obviously, help me out, Chandler. I always get nervous. Miguel
Ulloa.
Ulloa.
Yep.
I don't know why that is so hard for me to say. I know what it is, but I can't get it out. Dude throws 100. Let's see what happens. Let's
see where it goes.
Yeah. Again, just see. I don't know. He throws really hard. Seems like he had success in the minors. He's ready. I mean, there's nobody blocking him anymore. There's 4 guys that are recovering from Tommy John that would be blocking him. He's going to have all the runway to do it. So those are the 2 names that I'm looking at in the Astros system currently.
I was going to go with Blueball as well. You've covered everything that could be covered about this guy. I mean, I don't know why starting for them before, but this is definitely something he should be built up and ready to go for. And come to spring training, like, look, kid, I might even give him the first game of the year. He's, screw it, let him go out there and go the first game of spring training and get the 2 innings, 3 innings work and see what happens. And I think I completely agree. Go all spring training, let him build up just like a starter. And heck, at this point, he's been so good. He could even be your number 3 right now, depending on if that invisible ink ever does show up for this team and whatever other move they may make, barring trade. But I agree. This guy is poised and ready to be in this rotation. And until he's proven not ready and can't get it done, then I'm throwing his butt in there.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I am aware that I am not a scout or a coach, but I just don't understand what I am seeing differently or the hesitation. It's not like he's 20 and he's a high school pitcher and they're trying to predict. He's 25 years old. Like, just let him start. What are we doing? You know, like he looked good. See what happens.
And I mean, again, as I reiterated on the last one, like, or the last time we talked about this, like, just because like internally they view him maybe more as a reliever, like he's going to have the opportunity to start. Like, they're going to bring him to spring training because, like I've said, it's easier to stretch a guy out and then put him in the bullpen than bring him to spring training, don't stretch him out, and then like, oh crap, we need a starter in May. Like, how are we going to stretch this kid out? So again, you don't want to get so enamored with small sample sizes. We were talking about the same thing with Zach Cole. I mean, AJ Blueball threw 32 big league innings. They were great. They were very good big league innings. But I think let's also think about how they approach these innings. Like, he made 2 traditional starts total. One was his debut, which was a spot start. And then the other one was in that game, that last game, the game that got eliminated in Anaheim, when obviously there was a ton on the line going into that game, but they didn't really have any other options. And I think everyone kind of saw the writing on the wall going into that game as well, that it was going to take a miracle. Every other appearance for AJ Blueball was they used an opener in front of him to kick the third time through the order penalty down the road, because they did not trust him to get through an order more than once, really. Like a lot of times it's not about like looking at the stats and looking at the pitch metrics and things. It's more about like actions speak louder than the stats. And like the fact that this kid was pitching as well as he did, but could only get 2 traditional starts within a rotation that needed as much starting pitching help as it could, kind of demonstrates to you, where they thought of him. Now, that being said, he's allowed to get better. The secondaries are allowed to get better. He's allowed to improve this offseason. And like I said, he is going to come into spring training with every opportunity to be a starting pitcher. Like, they are going to bring him in and he's going to be stretched out, and it is going to be, Josh, like, I like that idea. Like, let him pitch the first Grapefruit League game. Let him, like, it's opening day in quotes, but like, let him get the opening day start. Like, put him out there, see how it goes. Like, I love that idea. And then, Miguel Ulloa is probably a lot more of a reliever risk than anything, just because of the command. The command is, he walks too many guys. He sprays the ball around. They were talking about late in the year, bringing him up in a bullpen role, but they were honestly just worried that he wasn't going to throw enough strikes. And that was the one thing that they needed. They needed guys that could throw strikes. They already had some walk problems in their bullpen. They did not want to risk, not only, the guy being nervous as hell make his big league debut, but also not being able to be around the strike zone. I think, they also have a big decision on Miguel Ulloa this coming winter too. I think a lot of people don't realize they left him unprotected from the Rule 5 draft last year. Now, he skirted through, no team picked him, but he was so good again this year. I think they're going to have a tough time riding through the Rule 5 draft and not putting him on the 40-man roster. So that's another decision that they'll have. But I agree, both of you guys, I think both of those 2 pitchers are guys that the Astros need to see take another step.
Can I give you a quick AJ Blueball stat?
Sure.
So he allowed 78 balls in play last season. I have the major league leaders sorted by batting average allowed. Where would you guess AJ Blueball ranks among all pitchers with those parameters, having given up 78 balls in play, batting average wise? Where do you think he ranks among all big league pitchers?
22nd.
15.
6th. He had the 6th lowest batting average allowed of all major league pitchers who had the same number of chances to give up hits as he did. I don't want to hear any more about, this tells you what they think of him through the second time through. I don't care. Let me see him through the second time they order. He keeps getting everybody out. Like, see what happens. What are we doing?
Let
And
the lead
again-
down one time.
And again, you're going to get that opportunity.
Well,
But
I'm mad at
remember-
you, Chandler.
Remember too, when all this was happening with AJ Blueball, it was like mid-August. Like they needed to win games. Like this wasn't about like, oh, let's see him out there. Let's see what the young kid can do. Like let's give him some leash. Like no. They needed to win games. Like this was like they were in a tight division race. They needed to do what they thought was best, and that was what at the time they thought was best. Again, he is allowed to improve, and if he does, the Astros will give him every opportunity to start. Before we get out of here, Josh, we've talked about this. Speaking of another pitcher that has been given the opportunity to start, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, I believe everyone knows who he is now, through a complete game against the Brewers in Game 2 of the NLCS, has been incredible for the Dodgers this season. If Paul Skeens did not exist, Yoshinobu Yamamoto would be winning the Cy Young going away. I think pretty famously, Yoshinobu Yamamoto signed a 12-year, $325 million contract with the Los Angeles Dodgers in the 2023 offseason. Josh, when he signed that deal, you had some thoughts, and this was your thought. You said, how do you give a guy $325 million without ever throwing a pitch in MLB? Josh, that tweet now has 8.9 million views. 8.9 million views.
By far my best one in my life then.
I'm going to give you the floor here. I'm going to give you the floor to maybe tell us your rationale behind why this got you so, and if there's been any maybe regrets on that since sending this tweet on December 22nd, 2023, right around when Yamamoto signed with the Dodgers.
I don't think I would say I regret it. I'd probably say that tomorrow if they gave it to somebody else. That's just my opinion, and I'm allowed to have it because it's social media, regardless if I'm me playing or not. Everybody gets their opinion, so that was my opinion. Obviously, it was wrong. This guy has been phenomenal and very, 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 very good to come over here and do what he's done. So I'll admit when I was wrong on that one. And I get reminded daily of I wouldn't say daily. I get a good tweet or six daily from Dodger fans, but every fifth day, it's you wake up and there's usually about 100 notifications with that tweet tagged and quoted and replied to of how good he was. And then, as you can imagine, a complete game shutout in the postseason is obviously something you don't ever hear about anymore. What was it? JV was the last guy, right, to do it on the walk-off. So pretty crazy, obviously. Bonehead move. But you know what? It is what it is. You know, they enjoy it. I just love how much I live in Dodgers fans' heads every day and how they just look forward to making it feel like they're upsetting me by sending these tweets and, just completely ruining my day. But if you're a Dodger fan, you're listening or, watching, it doesn't bother me one bit. So you do you for your 2 seconds of fame and go back to work.
And of course, the Dodgers would never allow someone to leave their organization who had never done anything in America. They wouldn't trade a Cuban prospect for a reliever who ends up being an MVP. That would be embarrassing for them. So Dodgers don't even understand what you're talking about. Of course, this guy's going to be great.
It is what it is, man. This is moves that happen in baseball every year that we get to watch this game, wherever they're coming from, whether it be Japan or, the Dominican Republic and all that stuff. So players turn out to be great. Some players don't turn out to be good at all. And he's just a case that turned out to be pretty damn good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Astros should have given him $326 million, I think.
I wouldn't have tweeted that if the Astros did that.
Or maybe they could have just saved that $1 million and given it to Jorge Polanco this year. That would have helped.
It's been fun. It's like, with 8.9 million views, man, it's keeping me relevant in their minds. So
just go and edit it to just be a link to our podcast now.
We should. Tons of views out of it. It's like wrestling, man. You got to be the good guy or the bad guy, and as long as you're a guy who's getting noticed and you're doing something right. So I'm just playing the heel for the Dodgers for the rest of my life.
And like you said, it was an opinion. We're all entitled to opinions. Everybody, like, I have bad opinions all the time. People tell me.
No.
People tell me all the time.
Those are right.
Just mine.
I've
don't
never
go-
been wrong once in
No.
my life, so I
That's-
can't relate to any of you guys.
That's good. I wish my bad opinions got 8.9 million views. Maybe this podcast can somehow.
I was gonna say, start having worse opinions on here. Let's see what happens.
Let's do it. Maybe we'll do that next time on
Mhm.
Crush City Territory, presented by Fox One. Until then, you can follow me on X at Chandler_Rome. You can follow Josh at JRedDubDouche. You can follow Tyler at Tyler C. Stafford. Please rate and review us on Apple and Spotify. You can like and subscribe to the Crush City Territory YouTube channel so you can get notified every time we post a new video. We'll be back later this week to discuss more of the Astros offseason plans and what lies ahead in a longer offseason than normal for Astros fans. But until then, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for listening.
Staff ace, AJ Blue Ball. Bye.